Hello and welcome to our podcast. Today we are going to be talking about the movies that we saw in the year 2026 in the last 2 weeks. To start with, I just want to inform our viewers that I was recently planning to do a podcast, and I still am planning to a podcast on all the 130 movies that Afreen saw in 2025, and I think more than 100 movies that I saw in 2025 with Afreen, right? But she's not okay with that idea. I still plan to convince her to do that. But since it's just been 2 weeks or 3 weeks since 2026 started, and we've already seen five movies in theater, uh, I want to do this for 2026, and we will do it periodically so that we don't have to do it all at the end of the year, right? So we are going to touch base on few of these movies, but overall we will be talking in detail about the movies that we loved. So we started 2026 with the movie. I believe David was the first movie that we saw.
I didn't know the actual David versus Goliath movie. I just knew the overview that, yeah, David is a underdog and Goliath is somebody huge. And I didn't know if it was a physically huge person or just like huge in stature. So I was actually pretty surprised to know that David and Goliath is a religious story, like really Jews and something to do with the Jew religion and something like that, right?
I think
So
it is Christianity. It is basically Christianity. It is a part of Bible.
Christianity and
Yeah.
it is based in Israel. So yeah, there is a lot to learn in the David versus Goliath story, and it is always used as an inspiration by many filmmakers to portray a underdog versus somebody who is a winner in the eyes of other people. That yeah, this person is big in stature or big in physicality, so they will obviously win. So I love that juxtaposition where people use that example and use it as an inspiration to narrate other stories. We have a Indian movie called David as well, which is really, really good. And I loved that movie when I saw it, and I would love to visit it again sometime. The funniest thing
Mhm.
is that in the audience, like, we are not overtly religious. So we are not saying Hare Ram or Ya Allah every other sentence, right? Like some people
Yeah.
do. So in the theater, there was this lady, and she was like, "Thank God, thank Jesus, and praise be to Jesus, praise be to the Lord." So it was a little bit funny to us that somebody could be like that vocal about their feelings, but it's good that it was speaking to them in that way. And there was quite a lot of crowd, where we go. Usually there isn't much crowd. So it was nice to see that there was a little bit of crowd and there was some interest. There were kids with parents who had come to see the movie. So I think people want to educate some nice
Yeah.
values in their kids, and that's why they take their kids to these movies. But we were almost ready to leave the movie at some point. But I would say it's a good movie. Like it's a movie worth watching to know the actual story of David versus Goliath.
Yes, exactly. It's not just David versus Goliath. There is a lot more to it. David versus Goliath was a very small part of the movie, I think. Just read out the synopsis. It features the character of David from the book of Samuel in the Old Testament, and it is a follow-up to the five-part television miniseries Young David, and tells the story of a young Israelite shepherd, poet, and warrior who is predestined to become the new king of Israel. He embarks on a journey from beyond the shadows of an evil Philistine giant named Goliath to prove to his people that true power lies not in kingship but in faith and freedom. So yes, I mean the movie starts with that, but there is a lot more to it, right? And uh, there are many people who clapped at the end of the movie, and the people I think who came uh, to watch that movie were the kind of followers of these faith-based movies, right? So it was an interesting watch, I would say, but not much for us to really talk about, except that philosophy that has been used in modern day storytelling as well, in many stories and many movies, right? And we always support the underdogs. So, that's one part of it. Now, going to the second movie of that particular day that we saw. So, to be very honest, this year we have seen very few movies in comparison to what we usually watch. So, we usually watch four movies in a day, but for some reason we just saw two movies that day. I don't remember the reason now. Anyways, the second movie that we saw on that day was Ikkis. Now, Ikkis is a movie made by Sriram Raghavan. This is Dharmendra, who has been the superstar of Indian cinema, who lived almost till 90 years. He just died recently, I think in the month of November and 2025 or December 2025. Um, but he was known as a He-Man of India, and including many of us, are huge fans of Dharmendra. This was his last movie, last on-screen appearance. So I think was already emotional. I remember crying buckets just seeing him on the screen for the first time in the theater, and absolutely, I loved the character he played. And I mean, we know him as He-Man, but with old age, I think people become a little fragile and they become more softer to look at. And he was, he had that softness in him, and he was playing that character. So I was super emotional just looking at him, and I loved the character that he played. Um, I love Sriram Raghavan movies. All of his movies I've loved. I don't think there is a single movie that didn't. Even Agent Vinod, which was supposedly his worst movie, was not a bad movie to me. But he has made some gems like Andhadhun, Badlapur, Johnny Gaddar, right? So, and even Ek Hasina Thi with Saif Ali Khan, Urmila Matondkar. It was a good revenge story. So coming to this movie, you go to watch a war movie, you think it is going to be about people shouting at the top of their voice, being patriotic, doing everything for their country, right? And this movie is about a true story of a boy who gave his life for his country at the age of 21. That is why its name is Ikkis, right? Ikkis is the Hindi word for 21. And he died protecting his country. He refused to go leave his tank. You know, he was responsible for a tank and refused to leave the tank. He kept fighting till the end and he ended up dying. Um, but that is just a part of the story, you know. But the other part of the story, which is also true, which is actually documented, is the story of his father, who's played by Dharmendra. And almost 30 years after the death of his son, he goes to Pakistan because India and Pakistan were one country before the partition, which happened in 1947. So there were many people who had to move from Pakistan to India. They just had to leave their house, um, you know, and they had to move to India. And the same thing happened to a lot of Indians who moved to Pakistan, right? And partition is something, especially people who were born pre-partition era. There are people who have so many emotions attached to the place they were born in, right? So Dharmendra plays one such character who goes for a college reunion to Lahore, which is in Pakistan, and he happens to go to the same. Um, I mean, he's hosted by the guy who is responsible for the death of his son, but he doesn't know that. Dharmendra doesn't know that, and that character is played by Jaydeep Alawat, who's done. All of the actors have done a phenomenal job. So he goes there, and so it's a journey movie. So there are two movies in one. One in which we see his son's journey from a college student to becoming a person in the army to going into the war, and we see how he fights in the war and a lot of other things. And then there is this journey movie where Dharmendra, the father of this son, goes to Pakistan. He visits Pakistan, he visits his old house, and he is on a journey with Jaydeep Alawat, the person who killed his son. I mean, who's responsible for the death of his son. And I think the journey part of the story is the most beautiful part of the story for me, which touched me a lot. Of how people welcome him, and then there are people who are not welcoming. But someone says to him that I lost my leg in the war. To which Dharmendra says, I lost my son in the war. You know, and all of us have lost something, but we shouldn't hold on to that loss. We should move on. We should we should just accept the fact that this is something we could not do anything about. Right? Countries fight with each other, and as people we support our country. We have to support our country. The army, the people, the army, the navy, and all the people who fight for the country do their part, do their role. But you are also supposed to move on. You cannot hold on to it. Everyone is doing their own duty, right? So that is the message of the movie. It is not pro Pakistan. It is not pro peace. It is just about moving on and uh, looking at each other as human beings than as people belonging to a particular religion or to a particular country, right? And I think the most beautiful part of the movie is the climax when parallelly we see how the son is fighting for his country and giving up his life. And on the other hand, the father and the person who is responsible for the death of his son are at the same place, at the same location where his son died. And the father is holding no grudge against the person who killed his son. He's saying that, I understand you did your duty, and I'm proud of my son for doing his duty. Right. So it's a very beautiful movie with a very beautiful message. And as I said, I always already biased towards the movie because it has my favorite filmmaker, that's my favorite actor, and the person whose last movie it was. So I love that movie. I can keep going on about that movie, but Afreen, before we move on to the next movie, do you have anything to say with regards to this one? I can't hear you. I'm sorry. I don't know if it's your mic.
Right. I recently was listening to Actors Roundtable, and in that they said that when you make a politically incorrect movie, in the sense that you present a view and then you don't present the other side of the view, like a movie such as this about war should have both the views, for the war and against the war. So this movie does that. It kind of questions your perspective about heroes and villains. A soldier from Pakistan is a villain for us, but he's the hero for Pakistan. And the same goes for India, right? So, um, that same person in another situation may have saved an Indian's life. Like, let's say somebody was dying in a lake and that person is the only person around and he knows swimming, then he may have saved that person. So the person is not bad here. It's the situation, a war which is being fought. And so I think that's what they are trying to say. Like, I know this perspective and I've heard about it, but it's good to kind of like somebody who hasn't thought of war in that way, war and the soldiers that fight the war in that way. It's a good exposure to them. And it's nice to see Dharmendra's last movie, I would say. It's so strange that Dharmendra in his personal life, had two marriages and whatever, but we put that aside and we only have a good memory of him being a good person, a soft person, a nice person. You can get away with a lot of things if you are soft spoken, I guess. So
And
I wasn't.
to support him with regards to that, he never left either of his wives. He was
Yeah,
married to both of
so
them.
I don't support that, and I'm not. I
I mean,
don't
there are
think.
people who leave their first wives to move
Thank
on
God
when they get married. So,
they're not torturing
I
two
mean, yeah.
people.
Okay. Anyways, yeah.
Like, I feel like a woman should not have a end all and be all. Like, a man should not be the end all and be all for a woman. I think a woman
Hmm.
should have enough resources to lead their life as they want. Like, like if it was, let's say it was the same case for a woman marrying two men. Like, it has happened, but it's just so weird. Like, I don't know. I think you may want to cut this portion off, but
No, that's
anyway,
okay.
so
No worries.
Yeah, it's again talking about perspective, right? Karthik is only focusing on one perspective of Dharmendra. The other perspective is totally gone, and I have that. Like, I can't let go of that. So that's why I'm probably not as emotional as Karthik. But again, like we had a fight, me and Karthik once, and he was struggling to get a tear. He was like, एक आंसू नहीं आ रहा है तुम्हारे आंख से इतना आंसू आ रहा है. So like I'm trying, it's not coming. But when he's really touched by something, like tears flow very easily. So it's nice to see that somebody can feel for certain topics or certain people that
I
way.
get emotional in movies. I cry
Movies,
easily in
cricket,
movies, watching movies.
yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, that
movies,
I
things that
feel
touch
that
your heart
sometimes the sadness within me
gets a
comes
release.
out, gets released when I'm watching a movie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I've seen that, sometimes I cry a little too much, and I understand that this is probably not the emotion that was triggered. This is an emotion that was triggered because of what I was watching, but it was within me, you know?
And
So,
sometimes it happens that a movie is like takes you to that peak, but then it doesn't like bring out the tears. You're sad, and you're like, "अरे यार आ जाता यार," like आ ही जाता रोना, आ क्यों नहीं रहा है? So because we are not able to release our inner turmoil, so they are like, "अरे यार, it was almost there, but it never happened." Like, so that catharsis is what we are looking for sometimes in movies, and yeah. But I'm glad that sometimes I see Karthik letting go of his inhibitions and emotions, and he just like cries buckets of tears. I like that
I mean,
people.
recently, my mother was very sick and she was in the hospital. We didn't, I mean, it just kept getting serious and serious, and I didn't know if it's actually serious. Should I be worried or should I not be worried? I didn't cry a bit during that entire period, but I'm sure that there was a lot of sadness
Yeah.
within me, right?
Mhm.
But I think I was watching my own movie, uh, a movie that I'm making. I mean, is in post production right now, and I would cry at certain scenes and get emotional. So I have realized this about myself, that in real life, in situations where, I mean, even the last 6 years of my life, I'm sorry, we are digressing probably, but very quickly, I want to just touch base on the point. Last 6 years of my life, except for 25, I would say between 19 to 24, there have been many moments where I felt down and out, I felt no hopes. And 25, I will attribute this to the movie All We Imagine Is Light. I hope, because it made me realize that I can still make movies and I can still have a day job. I don't have to have either of it. So, and that was a big relief to me. But in those 6 years, there were many times when I have broken down from within, but I was not crying. I was not in tears. But these movies, or any situation which is emotional, they would make me cry, and I would realize that it is something inside me that's coming out. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's about the tears, and I think we really went deep into it. But yeah, I mean, this is the way we like our podcast to go. It has to be deep. It does not need to be about the movie. It does not need to be about a particular topic, right? But yeah, moving on. Anything else about Ikkis that you wanted to talk about before we move on
The
to?
actor Agastya Nanda, he's done well. He has
Yeah.
this innocence of the youth, like not
Mm.
arrogant. Like he's very confident. He's the leader of the pack. But then again, also like there is some innocence about him, which is great. Like he comes from Amitabh Bachchan's family, and how like it's just so natural, and it's nice to see a
The,
confident
yeah.
actor who still is able to retain his innocence. Like there is nothing arrogant about him, or there is nothing. Yeah, you get this feeling, right, of
Yeah.
somebody not being
There is this rawness in
rawness.
his performance, which
And
works
his
in this
persona,
movie.
yeah,
Yeah,
personality
yeah.
also.
And I think you liked the girl, right? I remember very
The
recently
girl
you were.
is beautiful. Yeah, I thought the girl is beautiful. I hope she works and she gets, because we need Bollywood needs more actors, newer actors. So I hope she gets more
Yeah,
work. Yeah.
true. Okay, so that was about, I think, Jan 3rd, right? Probably Jan 3rd, 2025, that when we saw these two movies. And then recently on Jan 18th, we saw three more movies. We'll quickly touch base the first two movies. The first one was Dead Man's Wire, which was based on a true story. And the true story, when you watch it, it is very crazy, right? It's really crazy to think that something like this happened.
It's,
Yeah.
I mean, the delusional is the right word for it, not crazy, crazy. Like a person is so delusional that he will get away with abduction and kidnapping and will succeed to get millions out of a mortgage company. Like I was just asking Karthik, like, what would drive somebody to be that delusional? I mean,
Mm.
one thing is that, he's not fearful of losing anything. He's ready to lose everything. But even then, like, you're ready to lose everything. You're ready to go to jail, probably as a possibility, right? But the uppermost thing in his mind is that I'm going to get millions of dollars from this mortgage company, which has done me wrong, and I'm going to kidnap the president of the company. It's mind-boggling that somebody like that could exist. But the good thing is that you have to wait for the end and what happens to this person. That is the
In the
interesting
real
part
life.
because in
In
real
real
life,
life
because
or in
it's
the
a
movie?
in the movie in real life because it's based on reality, so it's a true story, right? So yeah, it's very interesting to watch. It's very interesting to see how American judiciary or anywhere, I guess, all over the world, judiciary works. And it's also interesting to analyze the like psychoanalysis of a person and a check for yourself. Like, am I delusional or am I sane? Like, when does delusion become a reality for the person? Like, yeah, it was a wild ride to say the least, but it is a very interesting watch. And the best thing
Uh,
about the movie was, you want to say? Okay.
but before, yeah, we will talk about that. But before that, I was just thinking that there is this strange connection between the first movie that we saw on Jan 3rd and this one, being uh, the philosopher David, right? Technically speaking, he's the David of this movie. He's the one who is fighting against the mighty big companies, and that's why he gets so much support. I mean, in the end, I mean, without revealing the end, if we have to, I mean, if you look at it as a on the face of it, right? Someone abducts a person, literally is attached what you call fire. He's attached
Shotgun.
a shotgun to his neck, and he's dragging him all around in front of cameras, right?
This.
And yeah, and he's blackmailing the police. He's blackmailing everyone, and he's going to blow up the whole building apartment that he's living in. Right? Everyone has to leave that place, and yet this person is getting support from everyone because he gets in touch with the radio jockey, a famous radio jockey, and that person
Yeah.
puts forward his point of view. So for people, it is David versus Goliath in the sense that there is this middle class person who is fighting to survive, and there is this mortgage company who is, you know, earning millions of money through interest and taking away the rightful, you get the drift, right? So, and so he's got so much support, and that support helps him in some way. Yeah, and I know what you wanted to talk about. The best part of the movie. I want you to say that.
So we see a scene where the guy who gets kidnapped, he's a nice guy, like, not very cruel or anything. Like, even as the president of a company, he's inherited the company from his father. His father is being played by Al Pacino. So at some
Yeah.
point, this guy's angst is actually with the father, Al Pacino. So he makes him call the father to get an apology out of it. So imagine a gun is pointed to your son's head, and the father is being called, and he says, "Hey dad, and they talk like, how are you doing, how's mom doing, everything." And then he says, ask him to give me an apology, and he's like, apology about what? I just followed the process. I did nothing wrong. He said, are you kidding me? I'm pointing a gun to your son's head. Give me an apology. And how would you feel if he dies? And he's like, I'll mourn his death. As simple as that. Like the audience jaw just drops. Like, what? What just happened? Like, that's
I will mourn
crazy.
his death, and you will mourn the day you stepped into our mortgage company, whatever the name of that mortgage company is. So, and
Yeah.
I mean, they picked Al Pacino to do this role, and Al Pacino did this role, and you can't imagine anyone but Al Pacino doing this role. He's got that Godfather swag in him, in
Yeah.
terms of I don't care, I'm doing my part, I'm doing my duty, I'm not going to care about you. And the son is not surprised because he knows
Yeah.
his father. He kind of expects his father to do this,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the just the I mean, once again, I don't know if this is right or wrong because even I have an issue maybe because of what happened to me in the last 6 years. I have an issue with these big corporates. So, and I might be working for a corporate in the future or even now, but in general. But I did feel good in the end when they said that this company went bankrupt, you know. So, so there was this feeling of happiness. Okay, yeah, they deserved it probably. So, but I don't know. Maybe we need these companies as well, right? I mean, mortgage company does help us to have a house that we are living in, and so that way we do need it. But
Yeah, I think that if somebody is in a financial problem, it's kind of their own doing. Like, I just heard David Ramsey or somebody say that, he categorized three category of people. Like, what are the rich doing? Are they spending on, big cars? They don't do that. They buy second-hand cars and stuff like that. And then what is the middle class doing? The middle class is always struggling to pay the credit card debt, which I am always struggling because I shop too much. And then what is the poor doing? The poor is taking debt after debt, like, and the rich are not in so much debt, according to him, which I found strange because like rich dad, poor dad, that guy says you have to be in debt. You should not spend your own money. You should keep taking debt. So it's, I don't know, different ideologies. But yeah, if somebody is in a financial trouble, it's usually their own doing. Like whatever we have earned in our entire lives, if we had managed to save it, then we would not be in so much trouble. In fact, we would be financially independent right now. So yeah, I think it's
true,
a thing to think about. But
true.
anyways, it's a good
Yeah,
watch. It's a different watch, and it's nice to see how American judiciary works. It's an interesting watch.
true. The next movie that we watched was Happy Patel. It's a Hindi movie that we saw. Um, it was an okay movie for me, and it was supposed to be kind of a parody movie, right? Making fun of and it was a lot of it was wordplay and silly jokes that it was relying upon. I think the one scene that both me and Afreen liked, and she will elaborate on everything, but the one scene that I liked and is the scene where he uses some of the dance moves from Hindi cinema that he has learned to do a fight. The way he uses it, and we also see the real dance move. That was really funny. I kept laughing in that particular
The
scene.
last part of the movie. So this movie, I would say, doesn't really work because it's very vulgar, and I know Karthik really enjoys vulgar
No, but I
humor.
didn't. I mean, I'm okay with vulgar humor, but I didn't find it funny enough. I also
Yeah.
didn't laugh through most
I
of the movie.
I actually have very, very high expectations from Veer Das because I feel like I have gone to his one of his shows and it was so intelligent, it was political, it was cultural, it was like at another level. Not many Indian comedians touch those tough topics, and he does that. And it was in South Mumbai, so the crowd is different, the crowd is more evolved, more knowledgeable about a lot of things and more accepting of such things. So I was just blown away, like, by Veer Das's humor. So if you compare
Mhm.
that with Happy Patel, he could have done better for sure. Like, he's capable. He's won an Emmy. He is definitely capable of writing a more evolved movie, more funny, less vulgar. So there are bits and parts you will enjoy, but I think there are still, like, when you come back home, you will still find Mona Singh to be funny because she's such a sweet girl, from Jessie Koini, and then she's this crazy drug lord. I like the crazy kind of, streak in people. Like, you think they are all Sida Sada and they play a crazy character. So I like that. So I think some of the things from this movie will stay with you because they are funny in parts. But it's not a rewatch. It's one time done and forgotten, probably. Yeah.
Okay, and the next movie that we are going to talk about is probably one of the reasons why we started this podcast, and the one that you see as Afreen's background paper, background poster. Is this thing on, right? So this movie is directed by Bradley Cooper. It also has a cameo by him, short role. What I loved about it, and I'm going to take this as an inspiration for one of the movies I'm writing, is the way they use stand-up comedy to um, give you narratives about the plot, or to give you an insight about these characters and what's happened in their lives or what's happening in their life. And the stand-up comedy is done by the lead actor who just happens to do it for the first time ever because he wants to save 15 bucks, right? He doesn't have the money and he wants to save that. And that particular bar that he is going to, they say that you either pay the money or you do an act. So he does the act and he realizes that he likes it a lot. He may be bad at it. I mean, I think initially he's bad at it, but I think through the movie he gets better. But what it helps him is it is an outlet, right? As I said, watching movie is an outlet for me to to come to feel better, right? To cry and to feel better and to just let it out. Similarly, comedy or doing stand-up comedy is an outlet for him to take out what is inside him and express it. So, and he gets addicted to this outlet, and you know that helps him, and that also becomes a very important point in him and his wife connecting back together, right? So overall, I mean, I enjoyed the movie. It was a very entertaining movie. Number one, it had a lot of. I mean, the characters were very well written. Both Will Arnett, I think his name is, and Laura Dern. Both of them have done a splendid job in the movie, and you relate to their characters. And all the supporting actors are also really good and have small role to play in their way they want. The father, uh, he's a famous guy, but I don't know his name. I've seen him in a lot of movies. Father of Will Arnett, and the mother, right? Their friends, the couple like Bradley Cooper and his wife. So all of them have a very good role and good characters. And so for me, yeah, it was a movie I was inspired by to use a part of it in my own movie. And of course, I found it very entertaining. So I have done my part of the review. You want to talk about it?
So is this thing on, I think, comes from the fact that, yeah, he's trying to not give the money to enter a bar, and he just is so frustrated with his separation from his wife. They're separated, not divorced. So he's like, okay, let me just go to a bar and get a drink to get rid of the tension. And but he doesn't want to pay the $15. So he ends up writing his name for doing a, what do you call it, stand-up comedy show, one-time comedy. And he says that, I live in an apartment and I know that I'm probably separated from my wife because my kids and wife don't live there. That's the indication that I'm probably separated. And this gets a laugh out of his uh, act. And so he thinks, okay, I can make people laugh out of my tragedy. And he gets a kick out of it that, people laughed at it. So he keeps coming back again and again. So there is a juxtaposition of something really happening, a fight or an incident really happening with the wife, and then his take on it during the act. So it's a release for him, but it's also a high for him because his wife kind of accuses him of being like, non-reactive. When somebody you just want to shake them up and you're like, just react, just be like human, just communicate with me, right? That has stopped between them. She feels he doesn't care for her and stuff like that. And I think they were in therapy, and she kind of makes an insult to him, like, everything is okay with you, like nothing bothers you. So, yeah, so this act, it's a release for him, and it's also a high for him that he's able to uh, put whatever is happening in his real life into the act and get a kick out of it. And in the process, one day his wife happens to be at the bar, and she listens to it, and she should actually get angry, but in the end, she has a smile. And that's where another step happens in their relationship, where it was going downhill till there, but then it starts taking a different route. It kind of brings them together. And from there, again, there's highs and lows, but at least they're working towards repairing it. And she finds it hard that her husband is able to be a stand-up comedian and is alive, right? Like for the first time, she sees him reacting to the situation that he's in. Otherwise, he's just like a mellow person, like no highs, no lows. And usually, you want a person to be, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like a mellow person is good, no reaction, you don't expect anything out of them. But in reality, like you want a person to go up or down, like, emotion wise. You don't want a person to be inert in that sense. So the repair starts happening because of his comedic routine. They start getting together, and in the end, everything turns out to be okay. But there is a funny take from the kids. The kids are like, "Are you depressed, Dad? Why is this file full of things that's happening bad to us? Why have you written it down? Are you depressed?" And then he has to explain it to them. That's an act. And then the wife discovers it, and then her parents discover it, and the mom has a very funny take on it. I don't remember it, but she says something, right, Karthik, about his routine, like,
I mean, they do. His father also attributes it to midlife crisis and all, and
yeah, they're like, oh, so
so
you're telling all your sadness to people and they're laughing at you, like, what's going on, like,
yeah.
But the entire movie is funny, but there is such a good arc to everybody's character where they are a certain way, but they end up evolving again, That evolution happens with Alex Novak, the hero of the film. And that evolution also, I guess that, when the other person is evolving in a relationship, you kind of evolve with them, especially if they're communicating. Like if they're telling you what they feel and what they don't feel. And at one point, he says that uh, I was not unhappy with the marriage. Like I wanted to stay there, but I probably was not communicating because something in me was unhappy. Like he was unhappy, but it had nothing to do with the marriage. It had probably, he was
What is the
not.
dialogue? I was unhappy
I was not.
in the marriage, but I was not unhappy with the marriage. Something like that, right?
I was unhappy in the marriage, but I was not unhappy with the marriage. Yeah. Which is hilarious. But I mean, to hear it is hilarious, and it kind of like doesn't make any sense, but it does make sense. Like it's like that. It's so strange, but that's the irony of life, and the irony of the movie. Like and you never expect that when they have taken such a big decision to separate, they would get back together, and it's so beautiful in that sense. And for Jan, like for all the movies that I've seen, it was so beautiful. It was so nice to see a rom-com, but in a different way. And the way Bradley Cooper has shot it, you can feel the compactness of a like an underground bar. You can feel the crowd. You can feel that it is a small space. You can feel like there are people like rubbing shoulders with each other. They're so close. Like, that feeling is there of a bar and all. Like it's difficult to translate the feeling of a place to the audience. Like when you see a war movie, not necessarily that you will feel everything that is happening there, right? But here you feel every uh you feel the you feel as if you were in the bar yourself, like the people, the smell, it all translates to the audience. So Bradley Cooper is great. Yeah, he's a great actor, and now he's become a great director. So it's pretty cool that he made this movie. And he himself plays a character called Balls, which I'm just reading on IMDb, and I thought, oh, his character name was Balls, which is funny. He plays a struggling actor, so that was also funny. In between, there are
Yeah,
funny takes from the cast. Amazing movie. I mean, you feel totally satisfied after watching this movie. So for me,
yeah,
must watch.
absolutely. Yeah, I agree with Afreen on this. It is a must-watch movie for both of us, and I'm glad we saw it. And I hope that we have some more wonderful movies that we are going to watch through the year. But 2026, I would say, started on a very good note. At
Yeah.
least for me, having 3 out of 5 movies which were really good is not a bad start, I would say. And we recently did a podcast on 4 movies being really good in one single day, which is a very rare occurrence, right? And that we just did it, and I'll attach the link to it in the end. But yeah, but so far so good. We are going to very soon come up with the podcast of our Oscar favorites. We are still in the process of finishing a few movies before the Oscars come out. There's still almost a couple of months to go for the Oscars to come out, but I think this time we're going to have some space and time to, because we've already seen most of them, fortunately. Uh, and since I mean, I think 6 out of the 10 movies I have seen. You've seen Frankenstein, or you've also
I
okay,
have
so
seen it, like not paid
bits and
attention
pieces,
to it
yeah,
while I was cooking or something. Yeah. I
yeah. So
want to see
six
it.
six
It's
out of
long.
10 is a good number because I think at least a couple of them are international movies which didn't release in the USA almost until now, and they are probably going to release now because of the Oscars. But so 6 out of 10 movies we have seen, and even in the actors category, I think most of the movies we have seen. There is this movie, I don't know if you've seen it, Blue Moon, and it's got
I have not. So apart from the 10
okay,
movies, we also have to see movies where actors are nominated, but the movies are not nominated. So we have to see
yeah,
that as well.
yeah, yeah. Right. And so yeah, we are going to come back and talk about those movies, and we're going to do this weekly. Whatever movies we watch, if we like it, we don't like it, we if we don't like it, we're not going to say much about it. If we like it, we're going to probably talk about it like for an hour, like we did now. So please keep watching. Let us know what you think about us, and subscribe to our channel. I
Thank you,
think.
Karthik.
Thank you, Afreen.